In this tutorial, we're going to be taking the default cube and giving it the love and respect it deserves by turning it into perhaps one of the cutest characters I've done in a tutorial so far. We're going to be making this bear right here using nothing but the default cube and just a simple image that we're going to download on the internet for free. One you could actually use commercially even if you wanted to. So if this is something you want to learn and you like Blender and you like 3D and you like cute cuddly things that make your life feel a little bit better, this tutorial's it's going to be a ton of fun. If you guys want to also help support the channel and you really like the things I do, you can also check in the description below. I have a link to Skillshare, and if you actually use that link, you can get Skillshare for free for 1 month, and you don't have to continue after that month if you don't want to, and it'll give you access to some of my other really cool courses that come with a lot of cool resources and files. In the description below, you can check it out if you want to. I think I've said enough. I really want to get into this tutorial, and I think you guys are going to really learn a lot of cool stuff. Okay, so I have Blender open. I'm ready to go, but I want to get my image first, and you haven't already done it yourself, just make sure to do it. So I'm going to put a link in the description below to Pixabay. So this one here, it's a picture of this bear. I think it's a really good one. The reason I particularly like this one is it's kind of consistently lit. Yes, there's some ambient occlusion, some shadowy spots here and there, but overall, compared to a lot of other photos out there, it's not too bad. So I'm gonna just take this one, I'm gonna download it. And if you sign up, and it's a free account by the way, you can download some of these here without an account, but if you sign up, you can download the full resolution one, which is kind of what I recommend. So I just downloaded the highest resolution one here. And just for example here, I'm going to have it on my desktop. So you can see here, I have it on my desktop. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, while I'm in Blender, I'm just going to hit 1 to go into my front orthographic view on my number pad. And in my front orthographic view, I'm just going to take that image and I'm just going to drag it, not onto the cube, but just kind of above it, just there, just so drag it into my scene somewhere. So there you can see we have the image in our scene here. And with it still active, you can just hit G and then go Y. And just move it back like that into the scene. So in your front view, you're not going to notice anything in front orthographic view because it's no perspective, but it is further back. So we don't want it, right here in the middle of our primitive cube. So just like that. Awesome. One more thing we need to do as well, because it's not perfectly centered and it's not geometrical. We're just going to go G and X, and we're just going to move this on X till that is kind of in the center here of our cube. Don't be too perfectionist about it. Just kind of roughly get it into place. And let's just hit Z on our keyboard, and let's just go into wireframe. And let's just use the kind of like this cube's wireframe display here as a reference. So with this image still active, we're going to go G, and we're just going to move it down. We're going to place the bear just about there. Once again, we're trying to just get it in the center of the cube. So look at the arms of the bear here. If it's a little bit too far out, bring it in. If it's too far out this way, just bring it in. Okay, but just roughly there. And if you look at the bottom of the bear here, so here at the bottom where the legs are, just kind of roughly try and get it to line up with this red axis line here on the floor. Okay, so don't be too perfectionist. Like, don't worry about getting too spot on. Just something like that is fine. And then we're going to select our default cube, and we're actually using the default cube today, which is pretty cool. So just a simple little primitive shape like this, and we're just going to hit Z, go into solid view again. And now let's just go into edit mode. So with your cube active, just hit the tab key on your keyboard. And you can see up here, that's where it lives. So just make that edit mode or just tab as a shortcut. And let's just go S and let's just scale that cube down till it's kind of like the dimensions of the belly here. So you can look from this side to that side. Then we're gonna go G, Z, and we're just gonna move this up till it's sitting almost at the bottom of our bear, right there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit Z, quickly go into wireframe, and let's just click over here and drag. And by the way, we're still in our front orthographic view the whole time, and we're in wire display mode. So Z and just wireframe. So just make sure of that. And we're going to go G, Z, and just move it kind of till it's just underneath where the neck and the body touch here. Now the neck actually touches a little bit higher than the chin, but because the chin kind of covers it, you can't see it. So maybe even a little bit higher than the bottom of the chin, so something like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go E to extrude that while we still got it active a little bit, and then S to scale, then E to extrude, and then Z, and we're going to just restrain it to the Z axis. We're going to take it up to about the top of the head, and then we're going to come in here over this edge, Control R or Command R. That's our loop tool. So we're going to just hover over this edge here with a cursor. You should see the yellow line, and just click. And you can right click to let go because we don't want to slide it. We're just going to go S to scale, right? And just hit 1 to go back into your front view. Then G, Z, just move that edge down to about here. Once again, don't worry about it not matching perfectly on the other side. We'll get to that. And then we're just going to come here to the stomach. We're going to go Control R. Once again, you can see the yellow line with the loop tool. Just click. And before we hit the right key, let's just move, or the right mouse button, let's just move our mouse and just slide it up a little bit, and then S to scale just a bit to bulge it out. So you can see it's not symmetrical on the other side. We're not too worried about that. We're now going to go Control R, but this time you can see the yellow line appears this way. So we're just going to click it in the middle here. So we got a loop dividing it. And then we're going to come here to the side, Control R, and make another cut here, and just click, right click to let go of that, and there we have that. So we have a bit more geometry. We're just simply going to hit A, and that selects everything in edit mode. Let's just go over here to our smooth tool. Click on the little gizmo thingy here, just drag it and just smooth it out a little bit. Don't go overboard, just something simple like that. And we're already good to go. So let's just hit Z, back into wireframe. I'm just going to click on the move tool here for now. I'm going to select this loop here by clicking and dragging it. Just going to slide that down to the neck a little bit more, S to scale it in. And you can see it's already starting to look a little bit more rounded out. But obviously, we want to be efficient here. So I don't want to be going back and forth, changing something here, and then coming back this side and changing it. So I'm just going to click, drag, and select these half of the verts on my left. And I'm going to hit X. And I'm just going to delete vert. So we only have half of this teddy here. And let's go to our modifiers. Add modifier, and let's give it a mirror modifier. So it's beautifully mirrored. Enable clipping. So the clipping just makes sure that when we move verts, they don't kind of pull apart. So if I don't have the clipping here, you can see that happens. So make sure clipping's enabled from the beginning, and that'll prevent that issue there. So let's now go to a nice handy tool here, the proportional editing tool. So I'm just going to click on it. So now if I select, for example, these verts here by clicking and dragging them, and I hit G just to move them, I can roll my middle mouse button while I do that, and that just creates a fall off. So the bigger the fall off, the more it controls, the smaller the proportional editing tool's fall off is, the less influence it has on surrounding vertices. So just something like that helps us evenly move around topology, but we don't have to select too much. So it's a nice little tool. I'm going to select these ones here, G to move them in a bit. Okay, so maybe I won't, because I can see it's making it a little bit narrower here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tab back into object mode, select the image here. I'm going to go G, X, and I'm just going to move it over a little bit like that. And I might even go R and just slightly rotate the picture, and then G to move it and just bring it in like that, just slightly. Now I'm going to select the teddy mesh again. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and let's continue. I might just come here and select this loop here. Just going to go G, move it in a bit. I'm rolling my middle mouse button to decrease the fall off while I'm doing that. And I come in here, select this vert here, G, move that down a bit. And now what we're going to do before we go further is just kind of start working on the snout here. Okay, so that's going to kind of cover a lot of things. So let's just go to our face select option. We're just going to select this face here because we can kind of reuse that. And we don't want to just extrude. We want to actually reuse this. So we're going to go Shift D to duplicate it. We're just going to move it forward a bit, just click. And let's just go to our right orthographic view by hitting 3 on our number pad. And then we're going to go S, Y, and we're just going to flatten that a little bit. Now, if a proportional editing is still affecting other things, you can just come up here and just change it to connected only. So it'll only change or affect the mesh that is active inside of edit mode. Now, would we have it flattened out a little bit by going SY? We're going to go E and just extrude it out about that much. And you can see that's what we're getting. And let's just go to our edge select. Select this edge here, and let's just go G and just move it back a bit. And we're going to come over here, Control R. You can see our loop tool. Just click, right click to deactivate that move, and then Alt S if that's still active, and we're just going to scale it out just a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is just select an edge on the body of the teddy. Control L or Command L to select all of it. Then H to hide it. Let's just go to our face select option and just select the back face. Hit X and then just delete that face. Now if we go Alt H, we can bring the bear back. Go over to edge select up here, Shift, Alt, and then click on this edge to loop selected. And then G, Y, just move that back in there to the body. So at the moment it looks very blocky. But if we now go to our modifiers, we can give this a subdivision surface modifier. And you can see it's rounding things out quite nicely. But at the moment, that's obviously averaging out the faces and stuff. So now you can see it looks quite small. You know, the dimensions aren't right here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come over here in the snout, Control R, add in a loop here and just click, right click. And then what we're going to do while that's still active is we're going to go, hit Z, go into wireframe, go into your front orthographic view. And now we're going to go Alt S, if that edge is still active. We're going to scale it out. And we're going to roll our proportional editing button to control the fall off, make it a bit bigger. And we're going to scale that out till it's about the same size as the snout here. And then I'm just going to select this top edge here, maybe even this one here. Back into front view, back into wireframe, G, Z. I'm going to move that edge up, roll my middle mouse button to control the fall off, bring it up a bit, and then I'm going to come over here, over this edge, Control R, add another loop. Then just select these two new edges at the top. Do the same thing. We're going to go G, roll the middle mouse button to increase or decrease the fall off and move it up a bit. Make sure to hit Z, go into wireframe, just to check the image here for reference. So we're just bringing that up a bit. And you can see that snout is already matching here quite nicely. Not bad, right? Pretty easy stuff. And we're just going to come over here to the head. We're going to select the side of the head here. Go into our front view, G, and just move it. Rolling the middle mouse button just to control the fall off. We're just bringing the head out a little bit like that. Selecting this top edge here and then G, moving that up till it just fills out that space a little bit nicer. We can come in here, Control R, add another edge, Alt S, and just scale that out along its normals. And all we're trying to do is just define the shape a little bit more accurately. So don't get too pedantic about the details at this stage. We're just really blocking things out. And we're relying on the subdiv quite a bit just to average things out. But eventually, when we get to kind of like a rough shape we want, we can apply that and we can fine tune the shape even a little bit more. So I think the head here is just a little bit too round. So I might actually just grab these two verts here and just go G and move them in a bit. But yeah, like I'm getting a bit too fiddly with it now. I think I need to just go on to the rest of the body, but something like that, kind of in the right area. So let's just quickly make the legs here, which look tricky, but are actually not. So I'm gonna show you that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over here to our face select option, and we're just gonna select this face over here. And we're gonna go Shift D to duplicate it, and we're gonna move it forward. But you can see it's kind of like connected to the face that it's being mirrored. So let's just go over to our mirror modifier, and just temporarily we're going to just disable clipping, and we're going to go G and move it over and then enable clipping again. So now that's its own object. We can go S to kind of scale it. It's no longer connected via clipping, and let's just move it back here. So G, move it back in here, and let's just go to our front view again, hit Z, go into wireframe, and we want to look at this leg. So I can see here's the front of the foot, and the leg kind of tapers down like a really sharp teardrop. So we can almost look at down here in the lower part of the bear. That's kind of where it's going to start. So we're going to place that right there. And then we're going to go into our side. We're going to go E to extrude and just extrude it out. Then we're going to go into our front view again. We're going to go S. I'm going to scale that face up. And we're going to go G. And we're just going to move it to where the foot is. And then S, Z, and scale it on the Z a bit. G, Z, S, scale it. Just scale it, G to move it, and just roughly get it to that spot there. Go to your right view, make sure it looks okay here. You can also go S, Y. So if you go S, Y, and you just flatten that a little bit, that'll also help, and just rotate it just slightly back. So now we have that. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to go E to extrude it, and then S to scale it just a little bit. So that gives us that shape. And then we're going to come in here, Control R, click, and then just move your mouse to slide it. So we're going to bring it up to about here, and then grab this top edge, and we're going to go G, Z, and just bring that edge up a bit. And we can go to our top view here, maybe just select this edge, and G, just kind of move it out to give it a little bit more volume. So now if we go to our front view, that's what we have. I know it doesn't look exactly up to scale now, but it's kind of giving us the rough shape we're looking for. So what we can do at this point is go to our face select this face here, and go into our front view. We still have proportional editing enabled. We're just going to go S, roll our middle mouse button to control the fall off. We're just scaling it up till that foot is more in line with the scale here. You can hit Z, go into wireframe if it helps, We're just roughly trying to get it there. You can kind of see what we're doing. Like I said, we're not trying to add too much detail, just keeping it simple. So with the body here, you can just come over here, Control R, add in an edge, just click, move your mouse down, just to move it down, and then Alt S just to scale that out a bit along the normals. And maybe even grab this edge down here, just move it out just to round the bottom out a little bit. Doesn't really matter because this is kind of like a still life render, if you will. We're not going to be seeing anything behind the front of the leg. So don't worry too much about those details. So now we have that in place. We've got the legs there. So it's looking pretty cool. And the arms are really simple too. All I did is I went once again to face select. And it's a very similar method to the feet. So I'm just going to select the face here on the side. Shift D to duplicate, move it over. S to scale it, and then into your front view. And then move it up to where the arm starts. And let's just go into wireframe again. And I'm just going to make sure that face is active. Rotate it a little bit, and then E to extrude. G to move, and let's just move it down to where the arm ends. S to scale. And then go to your side, G, Y, and move it back. So just something like that. Control R, you can see the loop, just add it in. S to scale that a bit. And what we can do is maybe just select that top face again. So I'm going to go to face select and go into wireframe, just select that face at the top of the arm. And then in the front, we're just going to go E to extrude it into the body, X, and just delete that face. And we can now go over here to our vertex select option, select these two verts, G to move them. We're just moving them up till they kind of match the arm a little bit better here. It's the same with these ones. Bring them out. Okay, that's looking a lot better. Just trying to add a little bit more volume to the bear's arm here. Maybe at the top, bring these down. But that's a very simple shape to make. So Control R, add in a little edge here. Maybe slide it here. G, and just move it up. We need a little bit more of a bend to match the reference there. But you can kind of see what we're doing. Very basic arm to make. And it does need a little bit more thickness here. So I'm going to go Control R, add another loop, Alt S, scale it out along the normals. Just gives a little bit of a feeling of a hand kind of going on there. But you can see very basic shapes. And we're relying on our modifiers here to help us out. So now the bear, what else can we add? He's obviously going to need some ears, but I think the ears we'll do separately. For now, I think we just need to refine some of the facial features so we can apply this. So what we're going to do is just go over here and let's just make it simple by selecting the bottom verts here. So I'm just selecting some of these bottom verts. Control L or Command L, that just selects that geometry. Everything that's not connected is the snout. So we're going to go H, it'll temporarily hide things. And now we got the snout here just by itself in edit mode. So now we're just going to select these bottom verts here. G to move them down, select these ones in the corner, move them in a bit. And all we're trying to do here is just match the snout. So you can see that looks a little bit more like the shape we had in mind here. So you can grab these ones, bring them up a bit more out, bring that down. It's kind of like a bean or kidney shape. We're not too worried about the side, but as long as it looks good from the front, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go Alt H just to unhide everything else. And what I'm going to do is just bring some of these neck bits in a bit. So I'm just going to select these two verts here. G, move them in a bit, just tighten that up. So it kind of looks like the body and the head are separated a little bit. Okay, so that's looking good. So let's now go over to our foot and just select this front face here. And what we're going to do is just go G, Y, and just move it forward just a little bit. Okay, so it's a bit too flat. So now we have that in place. What we're going to do is we're actually going to go over to our subdivision surface modifier. And if you feel uncomfortable doing this, what I would recommend, just in case you feel like you might mess this up, because once we do that, we can't get that back. So what we can do is just go Shift D in object mode. So we're in object mode. Shift D to duplicate the whole thing. Okay, right click to let go, but we have it active. So that says cube.001. And we're going to hit M and just go new collection. And let's just call it copy. And then just hit enter and then OK. So now we have a backup copy of this base, primitive base model that we've made that we could always go back to if we mess up what we're about to do. So just go ahead, untick it here, and we can't see it. So let's just go back to our original here, which is the cube. Go down to the drop down in the subdivide and just apply that modifier. So now if we tab into edit mode, you can see this is now applied. So we have something a bit more detailed we can work with. So one thing I'm going to do obviously is with the foot here, with these faces here active, just going to scale them up a little bit, and I'm going to go to my edge select here. Shift Alt, I'm just going to click on this edge here, and then I'll click on these two, these ones, this one here, so they're all selected, and I'm just going to go Control B or Command B, just create a bevel. I'm going to roll the middle mouse button once to add in an extra segment. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to go Control minus to shrink the selection to one loop. And then I'm going to go Alt S, and I'm going to decrease my proportional fall off by rolling my middle mouse button. And I'm just going to scale it in like that. And that's just going to give us a little bit of a divot there, but that detail really lends itself to this design. And let's just also add another subdiv modifier on top of this, which won't hurt anything. Okay, and then we're just going to tab out, and we're going to right click and let's just quickly go shade smooth. So let's just smooth things out in our viewport display. Just quickly hit tab to go back into edit mode. And that's what we have so far. Now, before we go any further, let's actually project the texture on here so far, so we can kind of just get an idea of where we're at. So that's super simple to do. We're just going to go here to our materials. And you can see we already have a material because we use the default primitive in Blender, which is the default cube. By default, it comes with a material just called material. So we're just going to name that material bear. And we're just going to come here to our base color and click on it. And we're going to go here to this thing here. It's called our image texture. So we're just going to click on it. We're going to come to the drop down. Let's just select that Pixabay image that we got. It should be in here because we dragged it into Blender. So just click on it. And now we have that material here. But if we hit Z, and we go material preview, you're going to see we have an absolute mess here, right? Because it's still using the UV coordinates from the original default cube that comes pre-unwrapped in Blender. So that data is just really messed up at this point. So we're going to go to our UV editing workspace, and we're just going to hit A to select all of this. 1 to go into our front orthographic view, and we're just simply going to go U and project from view. And here you can see in the other side we have half a teddy bear. So we're just going to click, drag, and select it all. G to move it, we're just going to move it to where the teddy is, and then we're going to go S to scale, G to move, and we're just roughly trying to line it up with the teddy here. So we can now go in here, slightly move it, and if you want to see what's happening on this side, you can hit Z, and then go into material preview, and you can see a material preview of this texture here. Now, one of the limitations, obviously, is that it's not going to look right from the side or the back. It's going to look weird. Even from the top, you're going to get a lot of stretching as those pixels stretch on the side planes. But like I said, we're trying to make a still life render from the front, and that's why this kind of works really well as just a front on render. But if you wanted to, make it as an asset that you could use, you'd have to kind of get extra images from the side and then project that, and you'd have to paint it all in to some sort of like master texture. But that's a whole other thing. We're not going to really cover it in this tutorial. So now you can see here, it's kind of roughly in place. What we can do now is we can individually come in here and select any one of these. So if I click on the edge here, Control L, just to select all of that by itself, I can actually come in here and just separately move the foot. I can also scale it, and I can kind of try and make it match up better to what I'm doing here. Over here, I can just also go to my vertex option, select this one vertex in the middle of the foot, Control L to grow the selection a few times, and you can see here it's just separately selecting these. So now I can come in here and just move them more into a place that kind of works for the dimensions here. So the foot is matching up a little bit better. You can see here, I can fill it in like that. It's much easier, and once I'm done with that, I can just hit H to hide it over here. And now I can go Shift Alt, click on this edge, and go Control Plus, and just grow the selection a few times. And now I can come in here and just grab these, and just move them roughly on the outside like that. And that way we get this part here, the kind of like the bottom part of the foot, that patch, to really match up to the UV projection. So just like that. But really, you don't even have to be that precise about it. I'm just doing this as an extra little step. But you can just really just leave it as we kind of just projected it from the beginning, where we just roughly moved it on top of the teddy bear, and you could still probably get away with it. You don't have to be this like precise like I'm doing. So you can just come over here, Alt-H again, just to unhide that. And you can see it looks a lot better. So go ahead, take your time, move things around, grab the different parts, come in here. You can use the proportional editing tool to slide things around till it just, like I said, all starts looking good over here. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as it is. And I'm just going to go back to my layout. And let's just quickly add in those ears, which are really an essential part of this teddy bear. So a simple way to do these ears, and I experimented a little bit, but I came up with a method that I think works really well. So we're going to go Shift A, and we're just going to add in a cube. And by the way, I'm back in my layout, and I'm going to go G. I'm just going to move it up to where the ear is. S to scale it down roughly about the same size. It's just about here. Then I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to hit Z. I'm going to go into wireframe. Click and drag to select these verts here. G, I'm just going to move them to the end here, or to rotate. Maybe I'll just grab this face down here, just move it up a little bit. And I'm just trying to roughly make that shape like that. I'm going to come here, select these two edges or 4 verts. S, Y, and flatten them a bit. Grab these, S, Y, and scale them out a little bit. So just something like that. And then we're just going to go to face select. We're going to select the bottom face, and we're going to go I to inset it, and then E to extrude up. And then we're just going to come over here, Control R to add in an edge, click, Alt S, and just scale it out a little bit. So now what we can do is go give this a subdivision surface modifier. And let's just go into our front view again. We're just going to select this front edge, G, and we're just going to move that edge. Select this edge back here, G, and move it down a little bit. Grab this one at the end and just stretch that ear out a little bit. And we're just trying to make it roughly match up to the original reference there. But don't be too crazy about it. So just something simple like that. Maybe grab this edge down here, just bring it out. Basic shape. And let's go back into object mode. Just go over here and just go and apply it. Then we're going to give it another subdivision surface modifier. And then holding in Shift, in fact, we probably didn't have to give it that modifier, but holding in Shift, so we need to select this one first. Then holding in Shift, we need to select the body of the teddy bear. Then if we go Control J, we're going to join that now to the body, and now it shares those modifiers. Just once again, right click and go Shade Smooth. And now we have the ears added in. So if you want them to share the texture, so if we hit Z and go to our material preview, you can see it doesn't share the texture here. So let's just quickly go back into our UV editing workspace, select the ear geometry, Control L. In your front orthographic view, go U, and then go project from view. And over here, you can just select the ear, G, move it over here, S to scale. Very simple, just like that. And then go back to your layout. And there we have it. We've added the ear. And it doesn't exactly match up to the reference here, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so it just kind of roughly gives us some nice ears. And I think it looks pretty good. So spend as much time you want refining things, but that's where I'm going to leave it at. So the eyes are also very simple. Shift A, just add in a cube. S, Z to scale it onto Z a little bit. And let's just give that a subdivision surface modifier. Bump it up to 2. Come to the drop down and apply it. S to scale it. In your front view, go G to move it up to where the eye is. S to scale till it's about the right size. G, Y, and move it forward. And once it's roughly where you want it, hold in Shift with it still active and select the body. Control J or Command J, and now it's joined. Right click and just go Shade Smooth. Back into edit mode, we can now select this geometry in here, and we can go U and project from view. Go back to our UV editing workspace and just quickly grab that geometry, G to move it, S to scale it, and just match it up to the eye here. You can also, if you want to, just give this a shader. You don't even have to add a texture. You can just add another shader to it and just make it like a black. I'm just gonna, for the sake of continuity, just give it the texture that's already here. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with this result. So I'm just gonna go back to my layout. And really, we're pretty much done at this point as far as the modeling goes. Now, you guys can spend as much time as you want working on the modeling. This is just me showing you how I kind of did it, right? You can see here, this is my original. I really put a lot more effort into that, but it really is the same thing. I did the exact same technique that you guys just saw. I just spent a little bit more time fleshing it out and moving verts around, but pretty much the exact same thing. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna just get into setting up a little particle system, maybe set up a few basic lights, and we'll just render this out and see what it looks like. And that'll be pretty much the tutorial. But yeah, it's gonna look pretty awesome. Okay, so what we're gonna do is just for now, let's just select the background image here, and let's just hit M and go new collection. And let's just, put it somewhere. So just gonna call it ref, and then go okay, enter, just make that its own collection. And let's just come up here and just untick that so we don't see it. So for now, let's just select that teddy bear. Let's just simply go to our particle systems, click new, or plus, makes a new particle. We don't want to work with emitter, so let's just make it hair. And at the moment, it's just not taking into account our modifiers here. So the simple way to fix that is just back in your particles. You got to go under here in the emission, just go to this little tab called source, and under here you can emit from, just use modifier stack. So that's super important. Now it's kind of like taking this modifier stack into account, right? Which is important. So back into our particles, we're just going to come to length and make it 0.02, and we're going to hit enter. Now, I need to mention this. If you scaled this object at all inside of your object mode, these settings here are going to be different because Blender looks at the scale of things when it's working with particles. Any sort of system that is applied on top of your geometry, it has to take the scale of things into account. So if you have scaled something, just make sure to go Control A and apply the scale. And hopefully you guys kind of followed along with how I set things up, so you don't have like, a monstrously massive teddy bear in your scene here. So just something like this, but with the scale here of the hair length, we 0.02 or 0.04, about there. We can adjust it a little bit later. But we have that in place now. We have 1,000 on the number here, which is fine. We're just going to come down here to our viewport display, and let's just make the strand steps here free. And then we're going to come to our children. So the children, essentially, if you kind of don't know much about particles, essentially these parent particles, which are this emitter number up here, that's just kind of like the particles that you can comb and individually control. So it makes things a little bit easier, and you don't like have to edit a million hairs. But for each one of these ones here, you can come here to the children amount, and we're just going to select interpolated in this case. And you can see here in the display amount, it's just essentially saying for each one of those 1,000 hairs that are the parents, it's going to generate 10 of the display amount. So those are our children, right? That's what I call children. The render amount is just the amount that's actually going to be rendering in the final render. So for now, we'll leave the display amount here to 10. And if you have a weaker computer or a laptop, you might want to consider keeping the display amount quite low so you don't get any sort of lags or kind of issues like that if you have, like, you're running a smaller device. So with the render amount here, I'm going to set mine up to 300, right? I can get away with that because I'm going to be using a GPU. If you struggle, just make sure to save your scene if anything crashes. Try and bring that number down a little bit. So what we're going to do now is, obviously, we don't want particles everywhere because we're just going to be rendering this from the front. It's kind of redundant to be having particles at the back here. It's just a waste. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go over here to our Object Data Properties. I'm going to click on the plus, and we're just going to make a new group. And if we tab into Edit mode, and we hit A to select everything, we can click on that group and go Assign. So any vertex that's now assigned to that group will have hairs. But we're going to come here to our Vertex option. We're going to hit Control 1 or Command 1, and that's going to take us to our back view. We're going to click and drag and just select all of the verts that are the back. So you can see here, it's just selected all the things that are back. And we're going to come here to this group, and we're just going to go Remove. So now, that's no longer part of that group. We're also going to just select the eye here, select the vert, Control L to select it, and come to this group and just go Remove. So now if you just deselect everything, and you have this group active, you can just go Select, and anything that becomes active when you click on Select is going to be what is going to be having our particles. Okay, so maybe over here I'll just come select these verts here, maybe just these ones here. And just I'll also go over here and just assign them because it's important. I'm going to tab back out into object mode. It's still not working because we actually just need to go to our particle settings here and just simply go down over the bottom here. You're going to see something here called vertex groups. And the one we're interested in is density. So click on density, and there you can see we have group. Just click on it. And all of a sudden, the parent particles just disappear. They're no longer visible at the back. Only where we have an active group of vertices added to that group there, we're going to be having hairs generated, which just kind of makes things a little bit easier. So now it just looks crazy because it's just too straight. If you render this, it's going to look horrible. It'll literally look like toothbrush bristles. So let's just go back into our hair settings, and let's just go up to the children. And under the roughness amount here, we're just going to come to the endpoint value. And let's just drag that up. That's going to give us a little bit more roughness, so we don't want to go too crazy. And we're also going to come here to the ununiform and just increase that. That's going to make things also a little bit more varied, a little bit more random for us. And then we're just going to go up, and I don't really know what this fully does, but if you click on long hair, it does a little bit of a better job. So just click on that over there. And we're also going to just go over to our render here. And this is important. We want to click on B-spline and just bump the steps up to 4. So I find that gives a really nice result. So we're going to do a test render, but we need to add some lights. So let's just go Shift A. Let's just add in a area light. And let's just also go to our render settings and let's just make the render engine cycles. If you have a GPU, I would recommend under the devices enabling it, but if you just have a CPU, it'll work. And we're just going to go to our denoising, enable it for the rendering, and let's just make that optics. So now once you have those things in place, just make sure to save as you go. And now we can just grab that light again, G, Z, move it up. Now we can hit Z, we can go into our rendered view, and we can see the hair stir. So it's looking okay. I'm just going to go to my light. I'm just going to make it something like 90. I'm going to go G, Z, move it up a little bit higher. And then I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate that light, move one over to the side, rotate it in towards the teddy bear, move it forward, just like that. So just simple light. Shift D, make another one, rotate it in. Yeah, that's really, really simple. So just 3 basic lights like this. And you can get rid of the original one here. And just get rid of the camera as well. You can delete that. So what we're going to do is just in our front view, we're going to go Shift A, we're just going to add in a camera, G, Y, and move it back, G, Z, and move it up, and then hit 0 to go into camera view. And you guys already know the basics. You just go to camera settings. Let's make it 95 on the focal length. I'm going to go to my output, and I'm just going to make it 1080 at the top. And the bottom, I might make that 900. Or maybe I'll make it, 1200. That's what I wanted to do. So just 1200. And then I'm going to go G, middle mouse button, and I'm just going to zoom my camera back. And I'm just going to move it down a bit. So just getting a nice something like this. I think looks pretty cool. Then I'm going to go Control B, click and drag over my camera view, and that's just going to kind of limit the rendering to the viewport. It kind of matters a little bit more if you have a lot of stuff in the scene, but in this case, I just prefer to do that. Just can sometimes help with performance. But you can see we have the bear here in our camera view. It's being rendered in real time. I'm going Z, rendered, and it's a bit of a mess. The hairs look horrible. So let's just go back to our particles. So click on the bear, go back to your particles, and we want to come here to the hair shape. And under the hair shape, we're going to come here to the root tip, and we're going to make it 0.1 because it's going to make the hair a little bit finer. So that already looks better. And we're also just going to come over here to our modifiers, and let's just make sure that all of these are in the right order. So we want our mirror first, then our subdiv, and then our particle system. So everything seems to be in place. So what we're going to do now is we might just also come in here in edit mode, just grab one of the eyes, scale it up just a little bit, and then move it over. And then G, Y, just move it forward a bit so it doesn't get too covered by the hair. Go back into object mode. And there we have everything in place. So let's just quickly do a test render. So make sure to save. Let's go render, and let's just render image, and let's see what this looks like. Okay, so here you can see the render result. It's still busy rendering. It takes a bit of time, even on my computer. But you can see, it's looking pretty good. Just for like the the first render attempt we've made with just all the little minor edits so far, it's looking pretty good. There's still a few bold patches, but that's kind of because when we kind of deselected some of the verts when we were making our vertex group, we might have we probably shouldn't have removed some of the ones at the back of the ear. So you can just go back into your object data properties, select a few more of those verts, and then just assign them to that group, so it will have particles there. So if you have any of those bold patches, that's how you can fix it. You can see here that the eyes, we can just bring them up a little bit higher and just edit the geometry. So I'm just going to kind of escape the render here. So I'm just hitting the escape key, I'm just closing this window, and I'm just going to come here and just select it, and I'm going to just do that. So what I'm going to do is just select the top of the snout here, and I'm just going to, in edit mode, just bring it down a bit. And just little things like that you can do. And what I did as well, I can see those verts are fusing there, so I might just quickly fix that. But what you can do as well, you can add the little part of the snout here. I'll quickly show you my original. So with my original here, which is pretty much the exact same thing, I did the exact same thing. What I did is I just added in a cube, and I just simply modeled this little object here. So you can see there, this is a really simple thing I modeled, and I just shrink wrapped it onto the surface, and I just projected that exact same texture material on there. So that's optional, you don't have to do that bit. And I just, like I said, I went in here to edit mode, and I just kind of selected the right verts, and I just assigned them to that group where I felt it needed it, and where I felt it didn't need it at the back, I just made sure to remove it because it's not really necessary. So that's just how I refine things. Really, this really nice result that you see here, this was my original. That is the exact same thing I just showed you guys. I used the kind of exact same lighting setup. Pretty much the only difference is I just added that little face bit at the front, and I just added in like a little floor for him to sit in, which is just a plane with a blue material. But other than that, this really is a very, very simple project. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed making this teddy bear, and experiment with it, try things out, mess around with some of the particles. But really, like everything, like I said, everything I've shown you here is pretty much how I got my final result. So you guys will definitely be able to use this to make some cool stuff. I look forward to seeing what you guys can do. You can check out the Discord group in the description below. And like I said, if you want to check out some really awesome like photo projection courses, I even show you how to do like a full bee animation with just an image. You can check out my link in the description for Skillshare, which will give you 1 month free on Skillshare, and you can try it out. You can watch some of my courses, you can watch other people's courses, and you can just decide if you want to do it. And if before 1 month is over, you can decide to drop out. You don't have to continue and pay for Skillshare. So that's something you guys can check out in the description below. I definitely encourage you to do that. And like I said, I'll be making my blend file available on Patreon, which you guys can also check out in the description. And that's another cool way you guys can support the channel, which really helps me make a lot of this content that you guys really enjoy. And it's really fun to be interacting with the community. So thank you for watching my tutorial, and I hope you guys stay safe, and I'll see you guys for another tutorial real soon.